It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pure Performance. Before we go on, I have to admit that I do not have my stopwatch ready. I don't think, Andy, that we've ever acknowledged that stopwatch is from the beginning, and it just dawned on me. So that's all the banter I have for today.
Yeah, but I actually have a stopwatch here from the Perf Bytes guys.
Ah, yes. Hi, Perf Bytes guys.
Yay. And actually, you know what? Today's episode is something where we can draw a link from us to Perf Bytes because...
Really?
I think so. Because I think Mark Tomlinson has been the only guest we had on the show twice, as far as I remember. And today's guest speaker, it's his second time too.
And before I introduce him, I do have to clarify. Yeah. Sometimes people might be like, oh, no, there's been a lot of people that have been on twice. But a lot of those people, we've recorded very long sessions, so we made them 2 sessions. Yeah. So technically you can say they were on twice, but that was all in like one subject session. Yeah, this is someone who's been on, then they went away, and then they came back. So yes, please introduce the second of 2 people who've ever had that honor. But then again, anybody else who's been on, who's listening, we'd love to have you back. This is not just exclusive or nothing, but we just yeah.
So today's topic is IoT, Internet of Things, and the expert on that particular topic from the Innovation Lab in Linz is Harald Zeitlhofer. Are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here, all the way from Austria.
Do you give the Austrian?
Hi, Andy. Hi, Brian.
Woo, woo, woo. Isn't that it, Andy? The Austrian hello? The fake Austrian hello?
Yeah, exactly. And Harald, if people don't know him, he's. I just saw some of your pictures, Harald, from a couple of days ago. You are a cave explorer.
What? Splunker?
Yes, I am. Spelunker, yes. Right.
Interesting.
For quite a while already.
Yeah.
So...
And I'm just fascinated. I mean, you have not only a gift for that, but also a gift for photography, and the pictures that you always take, whether it's on top of the world or underneath, are quite spectacular. And especially those from last weekend, where you found some special gems. And I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation or the correct names are for that, but it was really nice.
You could say it like that, yeah. So we went to an underground mine and really found some treasures there. Really, really beautiful things underground. And as I always try to do that, so not only as I do it in my job, but also as I want to do it in that hobby, more or less, document it as good as possible. And that's why I like photography so much. And that's what I did here,
Yeah. And so you're showing your friends, obviously, a different world through your lens of your camera. But now we also want to show and open up the eyes to our listeners to another new world that I think just opened up, which is the world of IoT.
Wasn't it originally Internet of Stuff instead of Internet of Things? But they didn't like stuff. I think stuff sounds more fun. Sorry, I just had to say that.
Yeah.
Internet of Stuff. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, there are so many different words for that, actually. So some call it just Industry 4.0, others call it Industry Internet of Things. Actually, a term that I like a lot is Internet of Everything. As we are not just talking about a new internet, so we don't have an internet for humans and an Internet of Things here. We are talking about a new revolution in the digital transformation that's going on for a while in other topics. And now this digital transformation has reached the industrial world, and we integrate devices here into our existing internet technology, and we let these devices interact with humans and share the information and work together. And that's why I like the term Internet of Everything a lot, actually.
I like that too, actually, and I like your explanation even better. I like the digital transformation is coming to industries that haven't seen the digital transformation yet. More the manufacturers or people that build goods that we use, and now they're digitalizing them, and I like that. That's.
I mean, digitalization itself has been there quite a while, even in manufacturing industry. So computer and automation are actually present for quite a while now. But what we are now generating, or what the world is now generating, is these cyber physical systems, where we not only measure or measure something or give put something on or off, but we really integrate all these machines, all these things that are out there. It's not only machineries into our existing applications, and we integrate everything. We give direct feedback. We can use that information for simulations, visualizations, and so it's really a world that integrates these devices together with the humans in the internet.
Right, and we're not just talking about things like your internet-connected fridge or your internet-connected thermostat. We're talking deep into manufacturing, mining, all, real hardcore industry stuff that's all getting connected, right?
Absolutely. So they are not only manufacturing. A very big topic here in the Internet of Things, or Internet of Everything, is healthcare, or logistics, transportations, power supply, but also the entire world of entertainment, TVs, home automation. So everything you just can imagine is now being integrated into the existing world of the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just looking out of my window and I see all these cars lining up here between two lights, and if they would all know what's actually going on the first light, which I can see, and if they would all be better connected and talking to each other, they would know that they can just bypass all these stupid lanes because there's just one car in the front who is blocking everything for no good reason. So that's what it is. Yeah.
So it's not just a computer that's in that case
collecting data from one device, maybe, but being connected.
Not only collecting data, but also sending the information and setting the state on the traffic light, for instance. But it could be multiple devices and really create a smart traffic light here. So we would not have that. Traffic jams.
I never thought about that. I always thought about the other way around, but never thought about smart traffic lights. I always thought about sending back information to the cars to drive them, to kind of direct them smarter. But smart traffic lights makes even more sense.
Yeah, it's an interaction. So on the one hand, the car could send the information to the backend that's processing and calculating the perfect traffic flow, and cars sending information here, and maybe 10 cars coming from one road, no car coming from the other road, and the smart backend automatically knows what to do and sets the correct lights or correct state in the traffic light.
That's a very interesting topic there, only because you'd have to get into some sort of machine learning to throw out another phrase on the back end there, because anybody who knows anything about traffic stuff is, it's not just one light. All lights, a lot of lights, especially in cities, are linked together. This way there's a flow, right? So if you were to change the operation of one light, that would require changing of the other. But as you're saying, if all these cars are feeding back in data to some big processor on the back end that can calculate and remap that, that's wow.
Yeah, and for sure it's a bidirectional communication. So what you just said, Andy, so that the traffic light sets information to the car is also valid, because when the traffic light is now red for road B and one car is approaching on road B, it could automatically receive the information from the traffic light and slow down automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, if you take it one step further, I love to take services like Uber and Lyft. Basically, if I know where I'm going, I can tell my car I'm going there. And then based on that information as well, and having it for many, many cars, we could probably much better automate the traffic lights, because we not only know that there's 1,000 cars driving on this road right now, but we know where they're going to.
Right.
Yeah,
so
but we
there's a
don't
lot
need all
of
that because we're going to be teleporting soon enough, right?
That's true.
I hate
So, but
driving.
Harald, so when we talk about IoT now, I think there's obviously different devices. There's like something very small and tiny. There's more like a sensor, but there's also, let's say, smarter devices, and that may already do some processing. I think there's some terminology for the different types of devices that we have and how they communicate with the backend. Can you fill us in a little bit about the terminology here?
Yeah, this world is very complex here in what we have. So on the one hand, we have smarter devices like if you see a car, for instance, as we just talked about traffic. A car itself could more be seen as a kind of IoT gateway. So it's really a smart device that has a lot of different sensors connected, and not only sensors that measure a kind of temperature or whatever, but also information like in a car, very important GPS information, so location data. On the other hand, for sure, information about gas consumption, information about speed, information about quality and health of the car system itself, the brake system. So all kind of information is collected there, data from the motor directly. And as we are talking about devices and machines like the motor here, the engine, we could have even vibration sensors that measure the health and the quality of the engine. And here we are in a very important situation, especially when we have devices that measure such information like vibrations. And this is not only for an engine in a car. This could also be in a pump for water, or even in a railroad to measure, for instance, the quality of the rails when the wagons are rolling over the rails. All this information could be too much to be sent over the network to the back end and being processed there. And not only because it could be too much, it's also not really necessary. Typically, we have smarter devices or smarter gateways for such measurements, like the car. And in the car, we have a pre-processing of this information then. So the logic that's deployed for that applications is not only running in the cloud backend, but also deployed to the devices itself. Mm-hmm. This is typically or ideally an automated process, so that not every device here has to be configured or updated manually. Imagine if you have thousands or millions of devices out there that could not be done manually. So this process has to be automated. And then you have processing of certain code already there and the data pre-analyzed, and you just send correlated data back to the backend platform then, where it's for sure used to do further analysis over time, correlations, not only for one car or one device, but for the huge fleet that's out there.
Interesting, because I was just thinking about, like, with all the amount of data being trafficked back, how is anything going to be on the internet anymore? But what it sounds like you're saying is, taking the car example, you'd almost have your little local area network there, where the individual sensors would be communicating back to the car, which we already know cars have somewhere over like millions of lines of code in them already. They'd process that data, right? And then the important stuff could be sent back to the central. I hadn't thought of IoT in that way. That's really, that's eye-opening. Thanks.
And do you call this, I think, Harald, you mentioned it, you call this edge processing? Is that what it's called, the terminology?
That would be what you consider as edge processing. Okay. So really at the edge of the system out there, we still do the processing of the logic, right?
Yeah. It's like, to give a quick other example, I just got a Fitbit from my wife. And so basically my Fitbit is sending data to my iPhone, where I have my app. And I believe only then, so kind of, I think my iPhone becomes my edge device. even though I'm sure the Fitbit does some calculation as well. But then if I sync it with my iPhone, I think they're sending back data to probably Fitbit.com to their service, because then I sometimes get emails about what I'm doing.
You're being lazy.
So, for instance,
you're not moving enough, Andy.
You had too many beers last night, and now the amount of calories you burned is not summing up. So yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting in that case, Andy.
As you're talking about Fitbit here, we can see two very different scenarios in the IoT world. So on the one hand, we have devices that have direct interaction with humans. So like you have your on your watch probably, or on your iPhone, you trace your
steps, yeah.
Your steps, your fitness, your exercises. On the other hand, we have a lot of devices out there, or a lot of sensors that do not directly interact with humans, but really measure something in a machine, in a data from a production line, and give direct feedback to the production line itself. So the benefit for the user is not directly from that process, but indirectly. So like you get feedback from an engine in a car, and directly feedback to when you find problems there, you can directly feedback that into the production cycle. And the benefit for humans then is to get a better car. On the other hand, we have these directly connected devices where you have direct impact if something's not working here, or if something is connecting to wrong backends, or whatever problems might occur.
Now the what really I think the IoT stuff is amazing and has a lot of great applications, but the one thing I think we've seen being the biggest problem, and I just don't know, maybe you have some insight as to if it's being handled, if there are ideas on how to handle it. The biggest problem by far with IoT is this idea of security. We've already seen people can hack into cars. I was looking at an article a little while ago where someone using Wi-Fi on an airplane was able to hack into at least the Wi-Fi system of the plane. They hadn't been able to breach into other areas of that, right? But as you could imagine, if you have, someone's going to hack your thermostat, right? Or we even saw, what was it, a year ago now, there was the DDoS attack, based on all like the security cameras, right? What's going on in the world of security for IoT? Because I almost see that as the Achilles heel of the entire thing, right? People are plowing ahead, not caring, but we know it's just around the corner. Everything's going to get shut down if we don't.
Yes, as we saw, this is now almost a year. It was October 21st last year when we had this big DDoS attacks where this army of IoT devices attacked the entire world. So the problem that happened there is we had devices out there that got infected over time, but no one realized that. And on October 21st, all of these devices started their attacks. The big problem here is that these devices out there, as we are talking about thousands and millions of devices, they are designed and built very cost effective. So they do not allow for a lot of memory and a lot of processing power. So they mainly have to be cheap. But on the other hand, that means that sometimes we have a lack of security here. Typically, when we see the existing vendors for communication, for devices, for backend platforms, there is a huge focus on quality. So these devices typically have to authenticate to the backend platforms and only get access when they are authorized to do that. And typically PKI infrastructure, so certificates and public key is used here to authenticate these devices. On the other hand, these devices are still connected to the internet, and if there should be a chance for an intruder to hack these devices, and these devices being able or the intruders being able to modify the code on these devices, you never know what they are able to. The more it's really important to monitor what's going on there, and even these DDoS attacks could have been detected before, even though the code was not really active, but it was already on the device. And just imagine you monitor the used memory of a device and send it back to a monitoring backend, and all of a sudden you find out that free memory goes down at more and more devices, on more and more devices. Then you can start thinking about, hey, what's going on here? And you can have a closer look, and then maybe find out, oh my God, something is loading up code to my device, so I don't have free memory available, and there will be a problem soon.
Yeah, well, that's a cool thought. Like free memory is one indicator, or monitoring the number of outgoing connections, monitoring how many bytes are stored on the device itself. And if you take this as indicators and monitor the change of them, then you can see if something has changed, if there's a quote unquote regression, and you detect a regression, even though the regression came in through a vulnerability. I mean, that's a really cool thought.
Right, but if you just monitor the outgoing connections, then you only can find out, okay, there is a problem now. If you monitor, in that case, the free memory or used memory, because the infected code was on these devices a long time before the attack started, because all these devices had to be prepared, had to be set up. So if you monitor the memory for these devices, then you can find out much before the actual attacks would start.
Yeah, and tied to that, these devices don't get updated very often. Some of them are out in the field running forever without an update. But even if it is, like let's say it was the security cameras, well, if there's a patch that's pushed out there, tying updates to those changes, so that you can see this happened when an update did not occur. Right. You would expect maybe a change if a push was put onto those systems, but being able to tie directly to when an event I love this idea. I think the other big issue with security, especially on the consumer devices, is that they ship with a default password, right? And so many people don't change them. And I hope with things like hospital devices and airplane devices and all that, they're putting a little bit more thought into some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a security problem with these devices that are used by humans. I would not consider them as IoT devices when we are talking about IoT here, because an IoT device is typically nothing where the user logs in directly. So this typically has other interfaces.
Okay. Now, Harald, you kind of already segued over to monitoring. When you talk with our customers, prospects, and the people in the industry, and we talk about monitoring, are we talking about more monitoring the devices itself in the use case you just explained to us, or is it more about monitoring the backend and making sure that data gets processed in a correct and fast way? What are the main use cases for monitoring?
Well, generally speaking, monitoring is a very big challenge in the IoT world, as we are not only focused on monitoring a backend application here for an IoT environment, and we have all these different types of devices out there, different hardware, different firmware on it, different communication patterns, different way of authentication. So monitoring is also as complex as this world out there. It really depends on the use case, but typically I would say it's full stack monitoring as our philosophy for other applications is as well. So we really start at the device out there. Typically, it's not what we do with mobile devices to monitor user actions, because we don't have these user actions. And typically these actions itself are also not that important that much. In an IoT device, we have other really important or interesting information that we want to get. And this is on the one hand, as I said before, memory, device health in general, power consumption, communication, so how many requests are sent out or received from other devices or from the backend, and for sure speed, performance of this communication, and not only of the communication but also of processes that are performed on the device. Very important is also software quality. So if we have devices out there that are updated regularly and new versions of firmware is rolled out, we could end up in situations where we have 10,000 of devices out there, 7,000 work well, but on 3,000 we have a problem, and we have a permanent problem. Then it's necessary to find out why that problem is. On the other hand, when did it start, and what firmware version is that? So we have to correlate this information not manually but automatically. We have to rely on automated processes here, but because the entire system is typically too large to handle that manually.
Mm-hmm. Is this? I know you are you're working with our engineering team in Dynatrace to on our development kits for IoT, our agent for IoT. Is this something that is already baked into what we offer? Meaning, if you use our development kit to monitor IoT devices, that we can automatically pick up things like what's the firmware version right now, some particular things from the device, and then correlate it automatically, and then you get information about so many people have this firmware and so many people have this firmware, and we have more problems here versus here?
Yes, we can already do that.
That's cool.
So it's actually nothing like we do with our one agent, that we just install a piece of code on a device here, because we don't know what the device is like. So that's why we have a different approach here. We call it the Open Kit. So the Open Kit is a set of tools, a set of libraries, reference implementations, where we show how to integrate monitoring into custom code here. We support already different languages here. So we have reference implementations for Java, for C++, for Node.js. And with these implementations of the Open Kit, we collect these data on the devices, then send it to a Dynatrace cluster, and we are already able there to use this data for these type of correlations that you just mentioned.
That's cool. And then especially with the use cases that you brought earlier, right? You're rolling out new updates to 10,000 of your devices, and then there's a problem on 2,000, and then you may figure out, hey, the update may have failed or something went wrong, and then you get all this information, and then you can much better react on these problems.
And another thing to your question from before is, we are not only monitoring these devices, because the important thing, or the big benefit from the full stack monitoring, is to see the entire system in the full context. So we, on the one hand, we see the devices. On the other hand, we see what the backend platform is doing. what the health is there, where are data processed on the platform, what kind of information is stored there, what external services are called, how does the integration into the existing business process look like, so we get a full picture from what's going on the edge device out there, all the way down to maybe the database in the backend application. And when we see the full context, and when we have all these data together and we can correlate them, then it's easy to find out, once we have a problem, where actually the root cause is located.
Now, there's one IoT device that I think we are all, as Dynatracers, very, very proud of. It's our Dynatrace UFO, and I know you've been working on this project. Are you using our Dynatrace Open Kit to monitor our UFOs?
The Dynatrace Open Kit is implemented in the UFO.
Wow!
So we can monitor what the UFO is doing. So we can see when we have firmware problems, and we can directly feedback that into our development cycles here to easily react on that.
Because that's pretty cool, and not only that. I mean, it's one thing to say we are a monitoring company and we provide you a development kit for monitoring IoT devices, but we actually have one of these IoT devices, and I mean, you and I guess Helmut, you guys figured out what does this actually mean to have these UFOs out there that we now have, we're selling and people are using it. How can we easily upgrade them? I think you built them very easy, and I used it, a very easy to use upgrade mechanism. Right. That's pretty cool. And then also the monitoring is in place. So that's pretty sweet. And we use our own product for that. So
because we know it's good, and we know that we can get the best out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say the more important thing, more important than us using our own product to monitor ourselves, the fact that we have a freaking UFO. I mean, we can go anywhere.
I know.
We have a UFO. It's just awesome.
Yeah, for those folks that don't know what this is we're talking about, just go online, use your favorite search engine,
and search for UFO.
Search for Dynatrace UFO. There's a great video on
just
YouTube.
UFO. Yeah. Don't search for Dynatrace UFO, just UFO. And that's what we have.
Oh, that's the one.
Your next flight with the Dynatrace UFO.
Yeah, easy space shuttle. No, Dynatrace UFO, or UFO as
yeah. There's another. I mean, I think this has been done before we announced the Open Kit, but I still think it's a funny story. One of our colleagues, Sarah Reitlinger, she has a hamster at home, and she actually has a little, I guess, counter how often the hamster is running in the wheel. And then she's sending that data to Dynatrace as well, kind of analyzing sleep and awake patterns and running patterns of her hamster. And it's a great blog that came out in April. But it just came to my mind, use cases of monitoring different types of devices, or getting more data and what you can do with that data. That's just phenomenal for me.
Yeah, and if you think about it in this way, right? If you're running a typical JVM, running an app server, right? You have all these JMX metrics. You have a lot of metrics built in that you can find out a lot about how that system's running. But when you're talking about something on a car, right? You don't have a performance monitoring interface. You don't have any of this kind of feedback. So what the IoT devices are allowing you to do is kind of get that monitoring in there. And then on top of it, we're going to help you, I guess, make sure all that's running well, everything is healthy, and find out where those problems are. But it's, the idea of the IoT and all these in the manufacturing lines is really to get the health of those systems and the feedback and knowing when things are going to fail, and because they don't have any of this built in. They're physical components, right? They're not JVMs or something. So
yeah.
Great stuff.
Harald, are there any other things that you came across that you want to mention in this session on one-on-one on IoT use cases, problems that people run into?
Actually, the IoT world is so complex. I think we could easily do 2 more of these sessions if we go more in detail with certain use cases. But I think for now we have done a very good overview on what's going on here, what are the challenges, and how to get control and manage these challenges by doing proper monitoring.
Cool.
Excellent. So shall we summon the summarator?
Let's do it.
Yes, we summon the summarator. So, I mean, what I learned today is that IoT should actually really be called IoE, Internet of Everything, because really what it is connecting, whether it's humans or devices, whether it's whether it's your car, whether it's your Fitbit, or whether it is your production line, to the internet, and supporting what we do in our day-to-day life. And I think we also came up with some new cool use cases that in case somebody from city planning and city management is listening in, smart traffic lights is a cool idea, I think. And I think what I also learned is that monitoring is a big challenge, especially because there's so many different types of devices out there, different use cases. But the good news is that monitoring vendors like Dynatrace, we think about this, and we provide an open kit to make sure that we can monitor your devices, and for different use cases. One use case we also discussed, which is hot in the news all the time, is security. So maybe we could have avoided the big DDoS attack that happened last year by following what Harald said, is monitoring the memory usage of these devices, and preemptively would have detected that something is wrong there. So if there's anything else, I mean, Harald, you said we could probably talk, we could fill 2 more sessions on this. I'm very happy. We are very happy to have you back.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll be the one that does 3 sessions, right? So
yeah, exactly. Oh, that's it. He wants to be in the lead. He wants to beat Mark Tomlinson. That's what it is.
It'll be like back in the there was on Saturday Night Live. There was like Chevy Chase, who was always a host, and then Steve Martin was a host a lot, and there was this rivalry going on. And now Alec Baldwin, as host, I think, beat everybody. So you're going to come back and be our return guest king, and we'll have to find someone else to unseat you. It'll be a rivalry between you and Mark. Andy, I want to concur that memory monitoring is really a fascinating use case, and it's very parallel to the regular app world as well, right? If you understand how your application works before you roll it to production, or even while it's in production, but if you're looking at the usage of your code through the pipeline and monitoring it through different pieces, you're going to be able to detect when something is anomalous. And same thing with the IoT devices. Get to know how it runs. If you know your memory shouldn't change at all unless there's an update, that can be a great way, as you're saying, as Harald mentioned, to detect when something might be awry. I think it's a really, really interesting use case. I also think IoT is just, it's very prevalent, I think, this day and age, but I still think it's very much in its infancy, right? There's probably, a million more different ways this is going to be leveraged and used, and a lot of different ways in which it has to mature. So it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes, and hopefully Harald can keep us abreast on all the new ways during his repeat visits as king of the guests.
Yeah.
So Harald, thank you so much or Harry, sorry, I should be more informal, huh? Harry, thank you so much for being our guest again today. Any final thoughts from you?
Final thoughts. The IoT world or the IoE world, let's call it that way,
yes,
is so fascinating. It's not sitting here and following one project. New requests are coming in each day, and new use cases and new ideas, and what could be done, how. It's so fascinating to be part of this development, and I'm really very curious on what the future will bring here.
Cool.
Excellent.
That's nice. If people want to know more about the Open Kit, Harald, is there anything?
Yes. Then please send me an email at Zeitlhofer, it's Zeitlhofer at dynatrace.com, or go to our website, and you also find contact links there. If there are any use cases, any projects that you are doing and have questions on how this could be monitored, or just want to talk to me about your projects, send me an email, give me a ring. I'm happy to talk to you about that.
And just to clarify, it's Harald with 2 A's, no O, Harald. I think US is usually Harold. So
all different versions usually.
Oh, it'll go through though, or no? Just the ALD. Yes.
We put it on the website.
Well, we'll put it without being a link. This way, no one doesn't start getting spammed. Also, in terms of just like
find me on Twitter.
Yes, we'll put that up there as well. What's your Twitter handle? Same.
H. Zeitlhofer.
Okay. And in terms of just like keeping abreast of all the cool things that are going on in IoE in general, are there any good resources you would recommend? Outside of what we're doing, if people are just interested in learning more about IoE and what's going on in the industry?
I'm currently working on a blog post for that could be out in a couple of days, and there I will also add some links to other further interesting readings. To be honest, right now, out of the box, I cannot provide you one.
Okay, well, we'll have that link because this will air after your blog will be out, so we'll have the links to that as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Cool. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys, and all the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.